In today's episode, we're going to discuss two Democratic nominees, Bernie Sanders, whose campaign might actually be coming to an end, Cory Booker, who finally hits his fundraising goal to be part of the fourth Democratic debate. We're also going to talk about the Democrats subpoenaing Ryan Pompeo and his response, and finally, Mitch McConnell says that they would have to eventually, if needed, take up impeachment. So we're going to talk about that all in today's episode. My name is Sebastian Giraldo, and you're listening to The Giraldo Show. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sebastian Giraldo, and thank you for listening to The Giraldo Show. We've got a pretty good episode for you today with a lot of interesting stories, so let's go ahead and get right into the news. The first story of the day is about Bernie Sanders, one of the frontrunners of the Democratic nomination. However, his campaign might be coming to its end. A lot of people might not be supporting Bernie as much as they did in 2016. According to Politico, the Sanders campaign is in serious trouble. With declining numbers, especially in early primary states like Iowa, and the looming threat of Senator Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts, it's clear that Sanders is no longer considered the chosen progressive, and it may be time for him to the exit before he sinks even lower. So according to Politico, it seems that Bernie is starting to fall in early primary states like Iowa because of Elizabeth Warren and potentially other factors, and it might be time for him to actually exit the primaries instead of just continuing to sink a lot lower. The problems with this campaign are evident. The campaign is reportedly suffering from an internal staff struggle and is having difficulty defining their core strategy. Even though there are only 4 months left until New Hampshire and Iowa, two primaries that Sanders' campaign was competitive for in just 4 years. So in this campaign that Bernie Sanders is running, the campaigners, the volunteers, are having trouble trying to figure out what it is exactly that they're going to focus on. Maybe on marketing, maybe on knocking on people's doors. They're having trouble determining what their strategy is for trying to get new voters, and that's kind of what's leading to this decline in the campaign, where people like Senator Warren or people like Cory Booker are getting higher campaign numbers, higher fundraising numbers. Bernie Sanders is, unfortunately, his volunteers are not getting a core strategy together, and they're not in turn committing to Bernie Sanders and his campaign. Bernie Sanders has no idea how to right the ship, and neither does anyone around him, one Democratic activist told Politico. They don't know where they're going. They know things aren't going well, and they are grasping at ideas. This includes floating the twin excuses of a base primary race and a superdelegate-dominated convention that favors establishment candidates. Sanders still says he wants to win, particularly when asked about his campaign plans on the trail, but his optimism is looking less rational as time goes on, even for a regularly less than rational candidate. So again, it looks like people are blaming this on a biased primary race and a superdelegate-dominated convention. So we might see Bernie blaming this on bias, on people not wanting a white guy in the presidency again, even though I believe Donald Trump is still going to be nominated and he's going to win the presidency again. He's going to win re-election. Sanders says he wants to win, obviously. I mean, who doesn't want to say that they want to win? But his optimism is looking a lot less rational. His rationale is not as optimistic as it used to be. This is what Bernie told a worried supporter at a rally. We're in this race to win it. The most important thing is person-to-person contact, all right? It is everyone here reaching out to 5 other people and explaining to them the importance of the election and why you think I should win this election. And right now, we have here in Iowa, incredible grassroots support. Here's the problem, though, because the support in Iowa is actually shifting to Elizabeth Warren, whose message is much clearer than Bernie Sanders's, and whose campaign looks professional and stable. I mentioned a couple episodes ago how Elizabeth Warren finally took a lead in Iowa, so that's a big reason why Sanders is going back to Iowa to try to win back that state. So Politico notes that in contrast to Warren's professional and stable campaign, Sanders' campaign has been a rash of fits and starts, sometimes focusing on pie-in-the-sky progressives' priorities like Medicare for all, only to turn more moderate on phone calls with high-level Democrats and members of the media. Warren, by contrast, seems streamlined and appealing, in the sense that she seems to be a formidable challenger for President Donald Trump. Progressives, despite their reputation, are still focused on electability, and with Trump facing down an impeachment inquiry, may be starting to believe they have a real chance at the party's nomination if they're willing to back a candidate with a polished public look. So progressives and moderates are going to start looking more towards someone who's going to win them the election. And it looks like Elizabeth Warren is more that person than Bernie Sanders. Even though Elizabeth Warren's ideas are pretty similar to Bernie Sanders, she's pretty much a mini Sanders. Warren's public image is much more likable and much more electable. So that's probably a big reason why she's starting to take the lead in a lot of national polls. It's also kind of the reason why Joe Biden's declining, because his public image has kind of been destroyed because of the Ukraine allegations and what has come back from him based on what he said back in 2016. So in Iowa, Elizabeth Warren now leads Bernie Sanders 22-20. Sanders was only narrowly edged out by Hillary Clinton in Iowa in 2016. So if that's a sign of things to come, then it looks like Elizabeth Warren might take the nomination for the Democrats. In New Hampshire, Warren is also looking competitive. Sanders, who won the state in 2016, replaced his campaign's New Hampshire infrastructure with fresh blood and appears to have paid the price in support. So Elizabeth Warren, is looking pretty competitive in New Hampshire as well. And Bernie Sanders looks like his campaign might be in trouble. Do I think Bernie Sanders is going to exit the primary race? No, of course not. He's one of the nominees who have the biggest support. He has the biggest support of most of the nominees, and he still has a lot of money for campaign, so I don't think he's going to go anywhere. But I just think it's going to be very interesting what's going to happen in this next debate, which is going to come up very soon, and we're going to go ahead and see what happens. Okay, that's the end of the Bernie debacle. Now let's go ahead and go into another Democratic nominee in Cory Booker, who finally hits his fundraising goal to continue his bid for the presidency. Senator Cory Booker revealed on Monday that his campaign finally raised the nearly $2 million that he needed in order to continue his bid for the Democratic nomination for the presidency. I have some incredible news, team. This is what Cory Booker tweeted on Monday. Last night at 8:16 p.m., we reached our $1.7 million goal. I'm so grateful that at the most critical moment of this campaign, thousands of people in all 50 states came together to give us the boost we needed. The announcement comes nearly 2 weeks after Booker's campaign gave supporters an ultimatum to raise $1.7 million in donations during the third quarter, or else he'll be forced to end his White House bid. So it looks like Cory Booker supporters coming out, raising that $1.7 million, and that's only one part of trying to continue his bid. The New Jersey senator has been lagging in his Democratic opponents in both fundraising and polls. To date, Cory Booker has not broken above 5% support in any nationally recognized polls and is just hovering under 2% on average, according to Real Clear Politics. Again, if Cory Booker wants to be in the next debate, I believe he has to get over 5% of support, or I'm not really positive what it was, but he has to get some level of support, and I don't think that Cory Booker has that amount of support. I do not believe people should stay in this just to stay in it. You either have a trajectory to win or not. And right now, if we do not raise $1.7 million, we won't be able to make the investments necessary, Cory Booker told the Associated Press in September. If we do not have a pathway to win, we should get out of this race. Cory Booker's pleas for donation prompted many of his Democratic colleagues and supporters to rally up fundraising support. Obviously, I mean, if Cory Booker is asking for fundraising, if you're supportive, you're going to probably ask other people to support. In our darkest hours, friendship illuminates the shadows. This is not an endorsement. However, I've been honored to call Booker my friend, said Stacey Abrams, who is the failed Georgia Democratic candidate who might still be running around thinking that she is the governor. He works tirelessly for a renewal of America, and he stands up for what is right. Let's keep his light shining. Other Democratic politicians, including Senators Kristen Gillibrand and Chris Murphy, took to their own Twitter accounts to plug Booker's Act Blue fundraising site, as did celebrities like John Bon Jovi. Former presidential candidate Hillary Clinton even jumped onto a phone call with Booker's entire staff on Sunday to encourage the team. So we're looking at a lot of high-end Democratic politicians, and even Hillary Clinton and other celebrities that are going around tweeting to help Cory Booker, and that's probably where all the money came from. Cory Booker has raised approximately $4.5 billion during the second quarter of 2019 and has spent nearly $1 million of that $4.5. His campaign has not yet reported his total third quarter fundraising to the Federal Election Commission, but candidates have until October 15th to file third quarter declarations. So October 15th seems to be a big day because it's when the subpoena of Rudy Giuliani. I have to go off on a little bit of a tangent here. I do appreciate one comment that was left on a YouTube video. It's pronounced Giuliani, not Giuliani. So thank you very much to whoever that was. So October 15th, that's when Rudy Giuliani's subpoena was. That's when he has to present the papers. Cory Booker said once again, big news everyone, we had just surpassed our increased $2 million goal. Thank you, 6.5 more hours until our end of the quarter fundraising deadline. Let's keep this momentum going. Adisu Demisi, Booker's campaign manager, stated the funds would go toward hiring additional staff and fighting to expand ballot access in key states, among other things. This is what she says, quote, "Later today, Booker's 2020 campaign will release details about the investments in growth, and we will be making to win thanks to our successful end-of-the-quarter fundraising call to action. We are also excited to report that the third quarter was our best fundraising quarter so far, by a considerable margin." Again, Cory Booker's second quarter was approximately $4.5 million, and if the campaign manager is saying that they've raised a considerable amount, then that $4.5 million, it's going to be interesting to see what the numbers actually are, and I'll get you those numbers once they actually release. Okay, there goes Cory Booker. Now we're going to get back into Ukraine with Ryan Pompeo. So Ryan Pompeo, he is a Secretary of State, and 3 House committees last week sent subpoenas to him regarding his involvement with Donald Trump's phone call with the Ukrainian president back in July. The House Foreign Affairs, Intelligence, and Oversight Committees all sent subpoenas to Pompeo demanding documents related to efforts by President Donald Trump and his personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, to dig up dirt on 2020 presidential candidate Joe Biden. This was reported by the Daily Beast. The subpoena documents shall be part of the impeachment inquiry and shared among the committees, according to the letter sent to Pompeo on Friday. Your failure or refusal to comply with the subpoena shall constitute evidence of obstruction of the House's impeachment inquiry. So again, it's similar to the letter that was sent to Giuliani, pretty much saying if you don't comply with the subpoena, it's going to constitute evidence of obstruction of justice to the House's impeachment inquiry, and it's going to be a whole lot easier for the Democrats to impeach Donald Trump. The whistleblower complaint made by someone who did not listen to the president's phone call with Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky claimed that a specific State Department employee listened in on the call. That assertion turned out to be false, as it was Pompeo himself who listened to the call. So Pompeo seems to have been one of the only people who listened to the call, and unless Pompeo was a traitor against his own president, it seems that the assertion of Zelensky is false, unless a Democrat could have potentially given away that information. The Beast also reported that the House committees have scheduled depositions with 5 State Department officials they say are important to their latest probe into Trump. This is from the Beast. They include Gordon Sondland and Kurt Volker, the U.S. ambassador to the European Union and the U.S. Special Envoy for Ukraine, respectively, whom the whistleblower alleges were tasked with helping Ukrainian officials navigate Trump's expectations. The first person scheduled to be deposed is Mary Yovanovitch, the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, who was recalled in May under circumstances the whistleblower described as politically motivated. Trump called Yovanovitch bad news in his July call with Zelensky. On Tuesday, Pompeo responded to the subpoena demands on Twitter, saying he was concerned with aspects of the committee's request that can be understood only as an attempt to intimidate, bully, and treat improperly the distinguished professionals of the Department of State, including several careers, foreign service officers. Pompeo said in the follow-up tweet, "Let me be clear, I will not tolerate such tactics and will use all means at my disposal to prevent and expose any attempts to intimidate the declared professionals who I am proud to lead and serve alongside the Department of State." So this is a bit interesting. Pompeo is tweeting that he's not going to be intimidated and he's not going to be bullied and he's going to be treated he doesn't want to be treated improperly. However, a lot of Democrats could see these 2 tweets as potential. What is he hiding? He's obviously has to be hiding something because he's being very defensive about the subpoena. I think it's just saying that Pompeo is just mentioning that the his subpoena is just a tactic to bully and intimidate him, which I think could have some correctness to it. I mean, the Democrats also subpoenaed Giuliani, so they have to try to get all the evidence they need if they want to try and impeach Donald Trump, because if they just have the transcript and the whistleblower call, it doesn't look like good news for the Democrats, so they're going to have to subpoena everyone at this point in order to find enough evidence against Donald Trump. In his official response to Representative Elliot Engel, chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Pompeo says the subpoena request raises significant legal and procedural concerns. He writes, quote, "First, your letter raises fundamental legal questions related to the authority of the committee to compel an appearance for a deposition solely based on virtue of these letters. Your letter implies that you have sought to compel department officials to appear for depositions on the identified dates. Yet the committee has not issued any subpoenas for depositions, and we are not aware of any other authority by which the committee would compel appearance at a deposition." So it's interesting here. The letter that Pompeo sends to Engel mentions that the letter that was sent from Engel, it raises legal questions related to the authority of the committee to compel an appearance for a deposition based on virtue of these letters. So it seems that really an official subpoena, it almost sounds like it hasn't really been sent out yet. It seems that Pompeo interprets the letter as Engel implying that he sought out department officials to appear for depositions on identified dates, but Engel hasn't sent any official request. So what's up with that? I'm honestly not too sure, because I do think that they were official subpoenas, but Pompeo obviously has more insider knowledge than I do. Pompeo also tells Engel that the subpoena did not give notice of deposition. Second, your letter provides a woeful inadequate opportunity for the department and the requested witnesses to prepare. These individuals have retained or may be retaining private counsel, as is their constitutional right, and in the course of the department's discussion with these individuals, several have indicated that they need more time both to retain and to consult with private counsel. So the letter mentions that the committee and Engel are not giving enough time to the people who they're subpoenaing to gather sufficient evidence and witnesses to prepare. They're being put on the spot, which doesn't seem very fair to me. They should be at least given some time. Maybe not forever, maybe not an entire month, but whatever time they need to gather significant witnesses, gather significant evidence, they should be given. They shouldn't be given 13 days at this point to go to a court to attempt to give evidence as to why they shouldn't impeach Donald Trump. Pompeo also excoriated Engel for trying to circumvent the executive branch's unquestionably illegitimate constitutional interest in protecting potentially privileged information related to the conduct of diplomatic relations by preventing State Department counsel from participating in House Democrats' depositions of former state employees. So Pompeo is also telling Engel that he's trying to circumvent the executive branch of the president, his legitimate constitutional interest in protecting information in the context of diplomatic relations. So here's basically what that means. Engel is trying to put out that Donald Trump is a bad person for doing his job as a president in trying to protect potentially privileged information relating to the conduct of diplomatic relations. So he's trying to protect information that relates to foreign affairs, and that potentially relates to an investigation that was put on Joe Biden and on Russia. This is all information that Donald Trump has the legal right to get, and this is why this entire impeachment inquiry, to me, especially with the transcript and with the report that was given by the whistleblower, it seems it's not enough evidence. I don't see any evidence of quid pro quo in the transcript, and the whistleblower report didn't really give much information either. So it's very interesting what Pompeo responds to, how he responds. He's kind of berating the committee and Engel in specific. He finishes, there's no legal basis for such a threat. Given the serious substantive and procedural deficiencies in the committee's requests, including the committee's apparent effort to circumvent executive branch constitutional interest in having department counsel present at any depositions, the committee's assertion lacks any recognizable legal basis. I urge you to exercise restraint in making such unfounded statements in the future. He's saying that Ryan Pompeo, he's saying that Engel and the committee do not have any founded statements on attempting to get this legal information from him. He's saying that the assertion of the committee, it lacks any legal basis, so we're going to go ahead and see what happens with this entire subpoena deal. Okay, we're running a little bit long on time, I guess I should say, so I'll just do a quick recap of our final story with Mitch McConnell, pretty much saying how Mitch McConnell, he said, yes, we'd have to take up impeachment. So pretty much saying, this is what he said in an interview. He squelched any speculations of attempts to step aside impeachment by making clear to the world that he would have no choice but to initiate the trial. The majority leader, however, also suggested that the trial might not give the media much time to hype it. This is what McConnell said. I would have no choice but to take it up. How long you're on it is a whole different matter, but I would have no choice but to take it up based on a Senate rule on impeachment. So Mitch McConnell, if the House votes on impeachment, McConnell has to take it up. However, that doesn't mean that it's going to last forever. McConnell could start the trial for impeachment from the Senate, but they do need a 66% vote from the senators in the House, and it is Republican controlled. So unless 20 Republicans that would have to vote for impeachment in order for it to go through. So I don't think it's going to go through. And so that's kind of a summary of the story. I'll go ahead and put the link into the links in the description so you can read the story. But that's going to be it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed listening to the podcast. Make sure you give it a like and make sure you give it a follow or a subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to. Thank you for listening to the Giraldo Show, and I'll go ahead and I'll see you tomorrow. My name is Sebastian Giraldo, and you are listening to the Giraldo Show.